Today in this video, we're going to talk about how we get our kids with ADHD to focus and pay attention. My name is Leilani. I am a former public and private school teacher. I am now a homeschool evaluator and a mom of 4 kids. I myself, I admit it, I have ADHD, and I have worked with many students that have ADHD, some of which are very close to me. Before we get started into the meat of this video, I want to kind of talk about what focus is and what attention is. So looking at the word attention, it is the act or power or ability to think, watch, or listen to something. Focus, it is the ability to attend to actively, to concentrate. So how do we get our kids with ADHD really able to focus, because they really struggle with that. Now, because of this struggle, it can affect a lot of things and not just being able to sit still in a classroom. Of course, it affects their education. They're not able to pay attention to long lectures. It can also interfere with personal friendships, personal relationships. So when you're listening to a friend, maybe they're not able to listen to every single word that that person is saying. Maybe it comes across as that they show a lack of empathy, and you know, maybe they do show a lack of empathy because they're not really paying attention 100%. It also could cause problems with interrupting the person, which is just straight up rude, or maybe they just walk away. Have you ever walked away from someone in the middle of a conversation or experienced that happening to you? It's not fun. And of course, it can also affect their future professional friendships and relationships, you know, their job force, etc., in the same kind of way as it does with a personal friend. Now, believe it or not, there are ways that we as parents can help guide our kids to do better in those areas. So let's first talk about some external factors that we can actually control as a parent. So the first one is nutrition. Now, I'm not a nutritionalist, but I do know when you eat sugary foods or have your child eat sugary foods, it's probably not a good thing. You know, they bounce off the walls and then they have that crash. They're not able to regulate their emotions, and then that's when the meltdowns start to occur. Keep sugar out of their diet, keep candy out of their diet. Maybe instead of, breakfast with cereal, maybe you have, eggs or some fruit. I know that kids that have ADHD can really benefit from some healthy fats, whether that's fish or fish oil or coconut oil or even some really good yummy avocados. I know that avocados keep me sane. My brain is all over the place, but I feel like an avocado really grounds me. I can't explain it except the fact that there's healthy fats in it, and I just kind of need it. Also, some supplements can really help out because people that have ADHD tend to not absorb nutrients as well as other people. Sleep. Mamas, put your babies to sleep on time. And what I mean by sleep is, not too much sleep, but not too little amount of sleep, because actually those two things have the same kind of effects on us. But what's also really good is to have your kid in a routine. So every single night they're going to bed at the same exact time. It's expected. It's just how things work. Another factor that you can kind of sort of control is management of stress. Yes, you can kind of help them control their stress levels. Now, by providing them with really good tools to help them get through some of those stressful things, for example, if you know that the next day you have to go to the doctor's office, give them a heads up, talk about what they're going to experience and, how they can respond to the doctor's office when you go. This can avoid meltdowns, all that kind of fun stuff. It's not fun. I don't know why I said fun. Putting a routine into place, like, you wake up in the morning, you have breakfast, you do your schoolwork, you have lunch, or maybe there's therapy sessions during the day that they have to go to, or you take their siblings to. You have that routine already set, and so they're used to that. Same with preparing the night before. Like I said, we talk about things that may be a little bit out of the ordinary, but also preparing things physically. So, get your hairbrush ready, get your headbands ready that you want to put in your hair, your clothes laid out, your backpacks packed, your shoes laid out, all that fun stuff. Also, keeping your house organized, having a place for everything. Keeping a child with ADHD organized is something that you are going to have to walk alongside with them. You can't just tell them to do it. You're going to have to show it to them several million, billion, gazillion times. Hopefully not that many, but it kind of feels that way sometimes. No, but seriously, have a container of pencils, a container of markers, where their book bags go, where their clothes go, little things around the house where they go. We have a place where the stapler goes. It goes in that place. all the time. Doesn't mean it ends up there by the end of the day, but it goes there, and I'm constantly reminding my kids to put the stapler back in that one place so we can find it when we need it, and I usually need a stapler a lot. Same with the hole puncher. Also, writing out a schedule is really good. You can totally control that. You control your kid's schedule until they're 18 most of the time. And if you want to have a lot of fun helping them out, actually this really helps them out, is create a checklist for them that has a lot of things to check off, because that's a lot of good, quick, short-term reward type things, which I'm going to talk about that in just a second. Just hang tight, hang tight. Oh, and bonus points, you can have them write out a checklist, and that's really good to do. What I like to do in my classroom downstairs in my house is I have a giant whiteboard. If you haven't seen my videos, I write out a checklist for them so they can just go through. It's a great way of communicating and also gives them independence and gives them something to do. As they check things off, they feel accomplished. It's reward. Really encourage some really healthy hobbies like drawing and coloring, exercising, all different types of exercising. That helps relieve stress. I also mentioned avoiding battles, but also avoiding things that you know are gonna trigger them. Yeah, I know. Sometimes you wanna trigger them in a safe environment so they can learn how to recoup from that trigger on their own, practice that. That is a thing. But if you just don't want to deal with that, try to avoid the triggers. Like, you know, when brother likes to run around the house and scream at the top of their lungs, you know that it triggers his sister into having a full meltdown. So maybe like try to help him avoid running around the house screaming at the top of his lungs. Or if you know having broccoli in their dinner is going to trigger them to have a meltdown, maybe like not feed them broccoli. Or maybe just take it and puree it and mix it with the pasta sauce and they'll never know there's broccoli in there. Maybe schedule in some silent time. You know, silent time around the house for 30 minutes. That silence really helps them to refocus and also helps melt away that stress that has completely fatigued them through the day. It helps me too as mom. But then again, I also have ADHD, so silent time. And also guide them to separate themselves when it's just too much stress. Just go to your room. I have a friend that was telling me the other day that their child just could not focus on their homework, and it took them like, they were just sitting there for like 2 hours with the math paper in front of them and not getting it done. Well, they said that they separated their child into another room, shut the door, gave him some headphones, not music, just headphones, right? Kid knocked it out in 5 minutes. Takes away the stress and cuts out all the background noise so they can now focus on one thing, because that cutting out the background noise is something that they have to be able to develop and learn how to do. We'll talk about that later. Now, there are some other external situations that can cause them to just, it's not fun, right? So, you know, the noise and the movement and the color, of course, all of this does create a lot of stress. But if you can keep those to a minimum, that's just avoiding the triggers. So we're gonna take a little bit of a sidestep here, an important sidestep, because it's gonna help you understand how that brain works. So we have networks and pathways in our body to get different kind of rewards, so to speak. So there's the short-term, reward-driven attention pathway. That is when you get some kind of reward every 30 seconds or so. So for example, video games, as you're navigating through the video game, you pick up a block, you go through this, you're getting these little tiny rewards. A lot of us notice that our kids can just zone out on those video games. And it's a lot of information coming at them, but there's quick rewards around every single corner, and it's going quick. Same thing is true when you're watching television, especially if you're watching television that has a lot of those quick angle changes, flashing lights, music, all these different elements to make it more entertaining. It's giving you quick rewards, but it's also feeding you a lot of information, so it is tiring on the brain. Sports, different kind of sports is a short-term kind of thing, because you know, you're kicking that soccer ball, you have to think, oh, I gotta go left, oh, I gotta go right. Of course, social media, that's like a super obvious one, flipping through Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all those things, super quick, short rewards. Also, another one that we don't really think about is eating. That's a quick reward. You put food in your mouth, you chew, you get that taste immediately. So some people have a really hard time with constantly wanting to snack all day long because you're getting those quick rewards. So that's just some things to be mindful. Not saying that having short-term rewards are a bad thing, because it's not, because you do want to have those pathways develop, but you also want the long-term pathways, the sustained long-term non-reward ones that are just, let's just be honest, they're boring stuff. Like sitting and listening to somebody talk for an hour and you're not really able to get up and move. It happens in school and college and church and whenever you're trying to listen to somebody talk to you. So why am I bringing all of this up? Because it kind of seems like thrown out there. Obviously, it's going to help you understand a little bit about more how the brain works, but it's also going to help you understand that you need a balance of both of those, and helps you to be a little mindful of when your child is doing an activity. You can think, is it short term or is it long term, rewarding, non-rewarding kind of thing. So if you notice there's a lot of that short-term reward type stuff, maybe you should do some of the long-term stuff too to give it that balance. Now, of course, kiddos with ADHD have a hard time with the long-term sustained stuff. So guess what we have to help them do? We have to help them practice by making them do it a little bit more. Practicing to develop both of them, specifically long-term. Bonus points too if you can add some muscle in there. Adding some muscle is going to wake up the brain. So the more you can get them moving, whether it's a quick movement or, long-term movement, I'm doing that because painting is definitely one of them, that's gonna help wake up that brain. So make them do more chores, scrub the floors, scrub the baseboards, paint the wall. Don't have them paint the wall unless they're over a certain age. Mow the lawn, make them sit and listen to you talk for an hour or two about your day. No, maybe not, because no. Scrubbing the floors, mowing the lawn, the grout's a good one. Have them do the grout. And some of these chores, I'm just going to be honest with you guys, can kind of be fun for them. Like I mentioned the grout, my son loves cleaning grout. And mowing the lawn, like seriously, what boy doesn't love mowing the lawn? Oh, I'm sure there's a few. Don't leave that comment. I know, I get it. There's a few boys that don't love mowing the lawn. My husband doesn't like mowing the lawn. But he's not a boy, he's a man. Now eventually you want your kids to start blocking out the world around them and having them focus on something that needs to be focused on, whether they like it or not. Now there is a whole nother thing with ADHD called hyperfocus. I am not going to touch that right now because that could just be a whole video in and of itself, but I'm talking about focusing when they're told to focus or when they know that they need to focus, or on something they don't really want to focus on. But also at the same time, you want to try and provoke them to not daydream. And in order to do this, it's a skill. It's a developmental skill, in fact. And you, as a parent or teacher or coach or whatever, you have to coach them through this a lot more than if you're doing it with a kid that doesn't have ADHD. So sit next to them. You're gonna see them daydream and stare up at the wall. No, back to the math problem. You read that math problem out loud. Have them read the math problem. Ask them questions like, what did that say? Can you read that to me again? Prompt them to engage and focus. So that's a big tool that you can use as a parent as you're coaching them through this, because eventually what we want them to do is to sustain that focus for a longer period of time. A fun little exercise that you can do is, let's say you are homeschooling and you have or if you're not homeschooling and you're working on, math is a fun one, right? So they have a math problem in front of them. Maybe you give them a sheet of like 20 multiplication problems. Time them to see how long it takes before they start either A, daydreaming, or 2, talking about something completely off the wall to you, or just not focused. Let's just say not focused. Time them. So do it a couple times and find the average. Well, you want to start stretching them out. Maybe put a timer in front of them and say, okay, today we're going to do your homework assignment. I want you, let's say it's 1 minute, right? Their average is 1 minute, right? So I want you to work on your homework for 1 minute, and then you can take a quick break, okay? Next day, 2 minutes, and then you can take a break and start adding more and more time to it, because now you're stretching them and you're developing a new skill. And it is going to be a lot of hard work on them. So then you're going to have to give them some quiet time. Timers are great. Little clocks, phones, whatever it takes. I like the ones, it's downstairs. I would get it for you. Maybe I'll like stick B-roll in here. It's a clock that has, a visual color to show them how much time they have left. And that actually really does work for all ages, even middle schoolers and high schoolers. Now here's a little quick tidbit. When we are not blocking out those things around us like color, movement, noise, etc., we're actually making our brain work a lot harder, and it's a lot more tiring on them. So that should be motivation to help you coach them. I'm going to say it again. Using your muscles helps wake up your brain. And if you can remember anything from this video, like remember that. So you want them to work on something for a good hour, sitting and doing something for an hour. We'll get them outside on the trampoline, sprint up and down the stairs, do like 100 jumping jacks before they engage in that activity. Getting the heart rate up is huge because after you do the heart rate thing up high, they're gonna have to do that rest and recovery. And during that rest and recovery is when they can sit and actually focus. Those are actually called brain breaks, and you could probably Google that on the internet and get like a ton of brain break ideas. Now, here's a fun one. You know how your parents or school teachers when you were a kid always told you to sit up straight? You can think when you sit up straight. I had one teacher tell me that it had to do with like the blood flow to the brain. Well, it's not that. It might be a little bit of that. I don't really know because I'm not a doctor, but I do know that when you sit up straight, your muscles are engaging as opposed to slouching and all your muscle is just relax. I know that my core is working more when I am sitting up straight, so once you're engaging those muscles, it's waking up your brain. Some other things you can do, now this is super, super obvious, but is to limit their screen time and be mindful of it, okay? I'm not saying that screen time is bad because we are living like, in the 21st century and they need to know how to utilize it and use it properly and all that fun stuff. But too much of it is extremely exhausting. And actually kids that have ADHD, when you ask them to get off of screens after they've been on it for a while, they've already shut down that area in their brain that regulates emotion. So that can kind of provoke some, meltdowns, screaming, things said to you that don't need to be said to you because they're not self-regulating. So if you can monitor how much screen time they get and give them a time frame, get off at this time. They're also, when they're watching screen time, their brain is completely just exhausted. Have you ever had a kid say to you after watching TV and then you shut it off and you say, hey, let's do some schoolwork now. And they're like, ugh, I'm so tired. I can't do it. Well, they actually are. Their brain's tired, but their body's not. So I know I'm just touching the iceberg on all of these tips and all this stuff, right? And if you like this, please let me know in the comments down below, or if you have any other tips, include them in the comments below. Of course, I do have a child that has Down syndrome, and I also have another child that has ADHD. And so it is a thing in our household. So we share a lot of our journey with all of us actually, but I do focus in a lot on my daughter who has Down syndrome and special needs. I talk about sensory processing disorder. This is our life, this is our journey, and I want to share with you and encourage you in your walk as well. Until next time, I will leave a video around my face and a subscribe button as well. And you can check that out, and I will see you in our next video. Bye.